China just found something on the moon that's worth more than every country's economy combined. And they're not telling you the full story. What they discovered 3 weeks ago could make Earth's energy crisis look like a joke. But there's a problem. Other countries are now racing to get there first, and whoever wins controls humanity's future. This isn't science fiction. This is happening right now. Picture this. It's December 2023. China's Chang'e 5 mission team is analyzing lunar samples in a Beijing laboratory. A junior scientist notices something strange in the data. She runs the numbers again, then again. Her hands start shaking. She calls her supervisor. Within hours, the room is filled with China's top space officials. What they're looking at shouldn't be possible. The moon, that boring gray rock we all learned about in school, just became the most valuable piece of real estate in the solar system. And here's the kicker. NASA had pieces of this puzzle for decades, but never connected the dots. China did. And now everything changes. Remember when everyone fought over oil? Cute. That's about to look like kids arguing over playground toys. What China found makes oil look worthless. We're talking about resources that could power cities, build space stations, and create technology we haven't even imagined yet. But here's what nobody's talking about. China isn't planning to share. Their Chang'e missions, Chang'e 4, Chang'e 5, Chang'e 6, weren't just scientific expeditions. They were resource surveys, treasure maps, and they just struck gold. Except it's not gold. It's something far more valuable. 3 discoveries to be exact, each one more mind-blowing than the last. The first discovery? Water. But not the tiny ice crystals NASA found in shadowy craters. We're talking about massive underground reserves, lakes, rivers, possibly oceans, hidden beneath the lunar surface. China's ground-penetrating radar detected water signatures 300 times larger than anything NASA estimated. This isn't frozen droplets. This is an active water system. Why does this matter? Because water is everything in space. You can drink it. You can breathe it by splitting it into oxygen. You can turn it into rocket fuel. You can grow food with it. Finding water on the moon is like finding a gas station in the middle of the desert. It changes the entire game. Suddenly, the moon isn't just a destination, it's a launching pad. Let's talk about how big this water discovery actually is, because when China announced it, most news outlets buried the story on page 7. They called it interesting findings. Interesting? This is like discovering the Amazon River under your backyard. China's lunar rover, Yutu-2, has been exploring the far side of the moon since 2019. The far side, the part we never see from Earth. The part that's been a mystery for literally all of human history. And what Yutu-2 found with its ground-penetrating radar changed everything we thought we knew. The data showed massive voids beneath the surface. Not empty voids, voids filled with something. At first, Chinese scientists thought it was just rock formations. Then they analyzed the reflection patterns. Water ice, lots of it, spread across vast underground networks. We're talking about reservoirs that could fill Lake Superior multiple times. But here's where it gets weird, and this is the part that made NASA scientists lose sleep. The water isn't just sitting there frozen. It's moving. There's evidence of a lunar water cycle, underground channels, thermal activity. Some areas show signs of liquid water, which shouldn't exist on the moon because of the extreme temperatures and lack of atmosphere. Yet there it is. Hold on, quick side note. You know how everyone says the moon is geologically dead? No volcanoes, no earthquakes, no activity for billions of years? Yeah, about that. China's seismic sensors have been picking up regular lunar tremors. Small ones, but consistent, coming from deep underground. Right where the water signatures are strongest. Something is active down there. But let's get back to the water. NASA's reaction to China's announcement was hilarious. They released a statement saying, "We need to verify these findings with our own missions." Translation, "We can't believe we missed this," because they did miss it. The Apollo missions brought back rock samples, dry rocks. NASA concluded the moon was bone dry. They were looking in the wrong places. China wasn't just looking, they were hunting. Their missions targeted specific locations based on magnetic anomalies and gravitational data. They knew something was down there before they even landed. That's not luck, that's strategy. And here's what makes this discovery absolutely insane. If the moon has this much water, you don't need to bring supplies from Earth anymore. Every kilogram you launch from Earth costs about $10,000. A single bottle of water, that's $15,000 to get it to the moon. Now imagine you don't need to bring water, you just need to dig for it. China already has plans. They're developing lunar drilling equipment, massive machines designed to extract and purify water from the regolith. That's moon dust, basically. By 2028, they want a permanent base operational, a base that makes its own water, its own oxygen, its own fuel. Completely self-sufficient. But the water discovery is just the beginning, because while China's rovers were mapping water reserves, they stumbled onto something else, something that made the water look almost boring by comparison. Rare earth elements, mountains of them. Okay, so rare earth elements. You've probably never heard of them, but your phone wouldn't work without them. Your laptop, your car, wind turbines, solar panels, military jets, missiles. Every piece of modern technology needs these materials. And right now, China controls 80% of Earth's supply, which gives them insane leverage over every other country. But here's the problem with rare earth mining on Earth. It's an environmental nightmare. You have to process tons of rock to get tiny amounts of usable material. The mining leaves behind toxic waste, radioactive sludge, destroyed landscapes. It's so bad that most countries won't even allow it anymore. They just buy from China and pretend the problem doesn't exist. So when China's Chang'e 5 mission analyzed lunar samples and found rare earth concentrations that were off the charts, people in Beijing probably started doing backflips. We're talking about europium, yttrium, scandium, neodymium, materials that sell for thousands of dollars per kilogram on Earth. And the moon's surface is loaded with them. Here's a number that'll make your brain hurt. Some estimates put the total value of rare earth elements in the lunar regolith at around $500 trillion. That's not a typo. $500 quadrillion. Just sitting there. No environmental regulations, no protests, no competition. Just dig it up and bring it home. And China isn't wasting time. They've already announced plans for lunar mining operations. Not in 50 years, not in 20 years. They're talking about the 2030s. That's less than a decade away. Automated mining robots, processing facilities, launch systems to send materials back to Earth. The entire supply chain is being designed right now. Wait, let me hit you with something that'll put this in perspective. Remember when everyone panicked about semiconductor shortages during the pandemic? Cars couldn't be built, PlayStations were sold out, prices went crazy. That was over silicon chips. Now imagine China controlling rare earth elements from both Earth and the moon. They wouldn't just dominate tech manufacturing, they'd control it completely. Other countries are freaking out. The United States just announced a new lunar program. Russia and India are fast-tracking their moon missions. The European Space Agency is suddenly very interested in mining technology. Everyone sees what's happening. China is about to corner the market on materials that run modern civilization. But as massive as the rare earth discovery is, and trust me, it's massive, it's still not the biggest thing China found. Because while their scientists were analyzing soil samples for rare materials, they detected something that changed everything. An element so valuable, so powerful, that it makes rare earth elements look like pocket change. Helium-3. And the moon is absolutely packed with it. Now, you're probably thinking, helium? Like balloon helium? Who cares? Wrong helium. Helium-3 is different. It's an isotope, a special version of helium that barely exists on Earth. Our atmosphere blocks it. But the moon has no atmosphere. For billions of years, solar wind has been blasting the lunar surface with helium-3, and it's been soaking it up like a sponge. Why does this matter? Because helium-3 is the holy grail of clean energy, nuclear fusion, the same process that powers the sun. Scientists have been trying to make fusion work for decades. The problem is that traditional fusion fuel creates nasty radioactive waste and is incredibly hard to control. Helium-3 fusion? Clean, efficient, no radiation, and the moon has enough of it to power Earth for 10,000 years. China's sample analysis showed helium-3 concentrations 10 times higher than previous estimates. 10 times! NASA thought maybe there were a few hundred tons spread across the lunar surface. China's data suggests there could be millions of tons, just lying there in the dust. Let's talk about what helium-3 fusion actually means. Because this isn't just better energy, this is unlimited energy. Energy so abundant and clean that it makes oil, coal, solar, wind, everything we currently use look like caveman technology. 1 kilogram of helium-3 could produce the same energy as 50 million kilograms of coal. No carbon emissions, no meltdown risk, no radioactive waste that lasts thousands of years, just pure, clean power. A single space shuttle cargo bay full of helium-3, about 25 tons, could power the entire United States for a year. The entire country for a year, from one shuttle load. And here's the kicker. Helium-3 is worth about $3 billion per ton. Some estimates go higher, up to $5 billion per ton. China's surveys suggest there are at least 1 million tons of extractable helium-3 on the lunar surface. Do the math. That's $3 quadrillion with a Q. That's more wealth than has ever existed in human history, and it's just sitting there, on the moon. But you can't eat money, right? The real value isn't the dollar amount. It's what helium-3 fusion would do to civilization. Imagine every home powered indefinitely, electric cars that never need charging, desalination plants that could turn oceans into drinking water for free, space travel becoming as cheap as air travel, climate change solved, energy wars over. Whoever controls helium-3 fusion controls the future. Now here's where China's strategy gets scary smart. They're not just finding helium-3, they're already building the technology to use it. China has multiple fusion reactor projects running right now. Their East reactor, the experimental advanced superconducting tokamak, has already sustained fusion reactions for over 17 minutes. That's a world record. They're not researching anymore, they're engineering. Quick interruption. You ever wonder why China is suddenly building roads in the middle of nowhere in their western provinces? Or why they're investing billions in infrastructure that seems to connect nothing to nothing? Fusion plants. They're preparing for helium-3 to arrive, building the grid, training the engineers. When the lunar helium-3 starts flowing, they'll be ready to plug it in. Nobody else will. The United States is scrambling. NASA's Artemis program, their plan to return to the moon, suddenly got a massive budget increase. The official reason? Scientific exploration. The real reason? They need helium-3. They need it desperately. Because if China gets there first and establishes mining operations, America becomes a customer instead of a competitor. And it's not just about mining rights, it's about physics. The moon has low gravity, 1/6 of Earth's. That means launching materials back to Earth is cheap. A rocket that struggles to lift 10 tons on Earth can lift 60 tons on the moon using the same fuel. China could set up a lunar helium-3 operation and ship it back to Earth for a fraction of the cost anyone else could manage. But even helium-3 isn't China's most shocking discovery, because while their rovers were mapping the surface, scanning for resources, drilling sample cores, they found something underground that nobody expected. Something that solves the biggest problem with living on the moon. Lava tubes. Massive ones. Huge underground tunnels created billions of years ago when the moon was geologically active. Molten lava carved out these tubes, then drained away, leaving behind hollow caves. And they're enormous. Some of these tubes are over a mile wide, cathedral-sized chambers, networks that stretch for hundreds of miles underground. China's ground-penetrating radar mapped at least 5 major lava tube systems, each one large enough to fit entire cities inside. And here's why this matters. Radiation. The moon has no atmosphere and no magnetic field. Solar radiation just hammers the surface constantly. A human standing on the lunar surface would get a lethal radiation dose in a few months. You can't build a permanent base up there, not safely. But underground, inside these tubes, natural radiation shielding. The rock itself blocks harmful radiation. Plus, the temperature inside these tubes stays relatively stable. No wild swings from 250 degrees in sunlight to minus 250 degrees in shadow. It's the perfect location for a permanent lunar colony. China already has architectural designs, pressurized habitats that fit inside the tubes, agricultural domes, manufacturing facilities, everything needed for thousands of people to live on the moon. Permanently, not a research station, a city. So let's paint a picture of what China is actually planning. Because this isn't a small research outpost with 6 astronauts doing experiments. This is colonization, real colonization. The lava tubes China discovered aren't just caves, they're ready-made shelters that solve almost every problem with lunar living. Radiation protection? Check. Temperature stability? Check. Structural support? Check. You don't need to build protective domes or bury habitats under lunar soil. Nature already did the work. One of the tubes China mapped is estimated to be 30 miles long and over half a mile wide in some sections. To put that in perspective, you could fit Manhattan's entire downtown district inside, with room to spare. And that's just one tube. They've identified at least 4 others of similar size. China's space agency released concept images in early 2024. They show modular habitats stacked inside these tubes, multi-level structures connected by tunnels, hydroponic farms growing food under artificial sunlight, water extraction facilities pulling moisture from the regolith. The whole setup would be self-sustaining. No supply runs from Earth needed, except for specialized equipment. And here's something wild. The same water reserves China found, many of them are located near or inside these lava tube systems. It's like the moon was designed for human habitation. Everything you need is in the same place. Water, shelter, building materials, energy resources. It's almost too convenient. But building a city on the moon requires solving one massive problem: getting stuff there. Rockets are expensive. Every launch costs millions. You can't build a city by sending up one cargo pod at a time. China knows this, so they're building something that sounds like science fiction, but is very, very real. A lunar space elevator. Well, sort of. It's called a momentum exchange tether system. Basically, a giant rotating cable in orbit around the moon that catches cargo from Earth and flings it down to the surface, then catches moon-produced materials and flings them back to Earth or to other destinations. No rockets needed after the initial setup, just physics. Hang on, quick tangent. You know how SpaceX is trying to make Mars cool and getting all the attention? That's a distraction. Mars is 140 million miles away. It takes 7 months to get there. The moon? 3 days. Mars has a thin atmosphere but still requires massive life support. The Moon's resources are easier to access. Mars might be humanity's future, but the Moon is the stepping stone. China gets this. Elon's playing checkers. China is playing chess. Back to the infrastructure. China isn't working alone on everything. They've quietly formed partnerships with Russia, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and about a dozen other countries through their International Lunar Research Station program. It's like NATO, but for moon colonization. And notably, the United States isn't invited. This alliance has been flying under the radar. Most Western media barely covered it. But the agreements are real. Resource sharing, technology exchange, coordinated missions. By 2035, China plans to have permanent rotating crews living in the lava tubes. By 2040, over 1,000 people. By 2050, a self-sufficient lunar civilization. And they're not stopping there. The moon base is Phase 1. Phase 2, asteroid mining. The moon becomes a refueling and construction hub for missions deeper into space. Ships built in lunar orbit, where gravity is weak, fueled with water from lunar reserves, crewed by people who live on the moon full-time. China's thinking generations ahead. While other countries argue about budget allocations and political priorities, China's mapping the solar system's resource chains. They're positioning themselves to control not just lunar resources, but the infrastructure that everyone else will need to access space. Now, here's where things get tense. International space law is basically the Wild West. The Outer Space Treaty of 1967 says no country can claim celestial bodies. The moon belongs to everyone. Sounds nice, right? Except there's a loophole. The treaty doesn't say anything about resource extraction. It doesn't prevent countries from setting up bases, and it definitely doesn't stop anyone from mining and keeping what they find. China's legal team knows this. Their position is simple. We're not claiming ownership of the moon. We're just using its resources. Anyone else is welcome to do the same. Of course, if China gets there first, establishes infrastructure, and controls the best resource sites, everyone else becomes dependent on their goodwill. The United States tried to get ahead of this with the Artemis Accords, an agreement about how countries should behave on the moon. Safety zones around bases, sharing scientific data, preventing harmful interference. Sounds reasonable, right? But here's the thing. China didn't sign it. Neither did Russia. Neither did most of China's partners. So now there are two competing visions for lunar development. The Western approach through the Artemis Accords and China's International Lunar Research Station program. Two separate frameworks. Two different sets of rules, both racing to establish presence first. Because in space law, possession isn't 9/10, it's everything. Let's be clear about what's happening here. This isn't a friendly competition. This is the biggest resource grab in human history. And whoever wins doesn't just get bragging rights, they get to write the rules for space civilization. Think about every major power shift in history. Spain and Portugal fighting over the New World, Britain controlling the seas, America dominating oil production. Every superpower rose by controlling resources that everyone else needed. The moon is that next resource, and China's winning. The United States is panicking in slow motion. NASA's Artemis program was supposed to land astronauts on the moon by 2024. That got pushed to 2025, then 2026. Now they're saying maybe 2027. Meanwhile, China's timeline hasn't slipped once. Chang'e 6 launched exactly on schedule in 2024. Chang'e 7 is set for 2026. Chang'e 8 in 2028. They're not hoping to get there, they're building a highway. And here's what keeps Pentagon officials up at night: military applications. Because everything we've talked about, water, rare earth elements, helium-3, lava tubes, all of it has military value. Water makes rocket fuel, Rare earth elements build weapon systems. Helium-3 could power directed energy weapons that make nuclear missiles look outdated. And those lava tubes? Perfect military installations. The moon's strategic value is insane. Low gravity means you can launch projectiles at Earth using a fraction of the energy. A military base on the moon could monitor everything happening on Earth, every satellite, every missile launch, every troop movement. With no atmosphere to block sensors, surveillance would be perfect. And good luck launching a counterattack when your enemy is 240,000 miles away behind lunar rock. Quick reality check here. Remember when everyone thought space was going to be peaceful? The final frontier where humanity works together? Yeah, that died the moment someone figured out you could make trillions of dollars up there. Space is becoming militarized faster than anyone wants to admit. The US Space Force isn't just tracking satellites, they're preparing for conflict. China's preparing too. Russia, India, even private companies are getting involved. But here's where it gets really messy. International law doesn't cover this scenario. What happens when China sets up a helium-3 mining operation and the United States says, that site is too close to our base, you can't mine there? Who enforces that? The UN? The Security Council, where China has veto power? There's no space police, no courts, no mechanism for resolving disputes except negotiation or force. We're heading toward a confrontation that nobody's prepared for. And it's not just China versus America. India's Chandrayaan missions are targeting the lunar South Pole, the same region China wants. Russia's Luna 25 already crashed trying to land there in 2023. Japan's launching their own missions. The European Space Agency's building lunar landers. Everyone wants a piece. The South Pole is particularly valuable because it has permanently shadowed craters where water ice accumulates, plus areas that get near constant sunlight for solar power. It's lunar prime real estate. And there's not enough room for everyone. Someone's going to get crowded out, someone's going to get angry. And conflicts on Earth have started over much less. China's already flexing. In 2024, they demonstrated a satellite that can grab other satellites out of orbit. They called it debris removal technology. Sure. And their lunar rover missions have been testing in situ resource utilization, basically making stuff from moon materials. They're not just visiting, they're moving in. The scary part? This is all happening incredibly fast. 5 years ago, lunar colonization was science fiction. Today, China has launch schedules, engineering blueprints, international partnerships, and active missions. The infrastructure is being built right now. The first permanent residents could arrive by 2035. That's 10 years away. Some of you reading this will be alive when humans become a two-planet species. But the biggest shock isn't what China's doing, it's what they're not telling us. Because every announcement they've made, water, rare earths, helium-3, lava tubes, those were the discoveries they chose to share. What about the data they kept secret? What else did they find that we don't know about? Chinese space officials are notoriously tight-lipped. They reveal information only when it serves a strategic purpose. The Chang'e 4 mission was on the far side of the moon for months before they released significant findings. Chang'e 5 brought back samples in 2020, but some analysis results still haven't been published. What are they setting on? There are rumors, unconfirmed reports, whispers in the scientific community. Some researchers claim China detected unusual magnetic signatures that don't match any known geological process. Others say there's evidence of subsurface cavities larger than anything they've publicly acknowledged. One leaked memo mentioned anomalous structures in crater analysis. That memo disappeared within hours. Are these just rumors? Probably. But the fact that people are even speculating shows how much uncertainty surrounds China's lunar program. They control the information. They decide what the world knows. And right now, they're deciding to move forward with colonization plans while everyone else is still planning missions. Here's what most people don't realize. This isn't a future problem. It's happening now. Right now, As you're watching this, there are active missions, launches being prepared, and infrastructure being built. The space race everyone thinks is coming? It's already here. Chang'e 6 launched in May 2024. It landed on the far side of the moon, collected samples from a region nobody had ever touched, and returned them to Earth in June. The fastest sample return mission in history. China analyzed those samples in record time and immediately started designing extraction equipment based on what they found. That's not exploration, that's prospecting. Chang'e 7 is scheduled to launch in 2026. Its mission? Map the lunar South Pole in extreme detail. Identify the best locations for a permanent base, test drilling equipment, survey ice deposits. It's a construction survey. They're picking out where to build. Chang'e 8 follows in 2028. This one's different. It's carrying 3D printing equipment, resource processing experiments, and construction robots. The mission objective is literally to test building structures using lunar materials. They're going to make bricks out of moon dust and stack them. This is rehearsal for permanent construction. And then 2030 hits. That's when China plans to begin building their International Lunar Research Station. Not a concept, not a proposal, actual construction. Habitat modules, power systems, landing pads, the foundation for everything that comes after. But wait, it gets better. China isn't waiting until 2030 to start the big stuff. They're launching components now. In 2025 and 2026, they're sending up heavy cargo missions with pre-positioned supplies, equipment caches, fuel reserves, emergency shelters. When the construction crews arrive, everything they need will already be there waiting. Meanwhile, the United States is trying to catch up. Artemis 2 is scheduled for 2025, a crewed flyby of the moon. Not a landing, just flying around it. Artemis 3, the actual landing mission, is now pushed to 2027 at the earliest. By the time American astronauts step on the moon again, China could already have habitats under construction. Quick side note, NASA's budget is about $25 billion a year. Sounds like a lot, right? China doesn't publish exact numbers, but analysts estimate their space program budget is around $15 billion. Lower, sure, but here's the difference. NASA has to justify every dollar to Congress. Politicians arguing about funding while engineers wait. China's space agency reports directly to the central government. When they say they need money, they get it. No debates, no delays. Also, China's playing a different game with costs. American space companies charge premium prices because they can. A SpaceX Falcon 9 launch costs about $60 million. China's Long March rockets? About $30 million, half the price. And China's building their own heavy-lift rocket, the Long March 9, specifically for lunar missions. First launch is scheduled for 2030. This thing will be more powerful than anything America has operational. Private companies are jumping in too. Blue Origin, SpaceX, even smaller startups are proposing lunar landers and cargo services. But they're all targeting the same customer, NASA. They need government contracts to survive. China's approach is unified. State-owned companies working toward the same goal with guaranteed funding. It's slower to innovate, maybe, but faster to execute. Europe's trying to play both sides. The European Space Agency has partnerships with NASA through the Artemis program, but they're also talking to China. Germany, France, and Italy have scientists collaborating on Chang'e missions. Europe wants access to whoever wins. Smart, but it also means they're not fully committed to either side. Russia's in a weird position. They used to be a space superpower. Now, their economy's struggling. Their Luna 25 mission crashed. But they've committed to partnering with China on the International Lunar Research Station. They're bringing decades of space experience and some unique technology. Whether they can deliver is another question. India is quietly becoming a major player. Their Chandrayaan-3 mission landed successfully in 2023. Their Chandrayaan-4 is designed to return samples, and they're planning Chandrayaan-5 as a lunar base feasibility mission. India's space program runs on a shoestring budget, but gets results. They're scrappy, and they're not aligned with either China or the United States, which makes them unpredictable. Then there's the wild card, private corporations. Companies like SpaceX aren't just contractors, they have their own agendas. Elon Musk has talked about using the moon as a fuel depot for Mars missions. Other billionaires are eyeing lunar tourism, space hotels orbiting the moon, mining companies planning extraction operations. It's not just governments anymore. Capitalism is going to space. And that creates a whole new problem. Who regulates private companies in space? If a corporation starts mining helium-3 and shipping it to Earth, do they pay taxes? To who? What if their operations interfere with a government base? What if two companies claim the same resource deposit? There's no legal framework for any of this. We're about to find out what happens when the most valuable resources in the solar system have no clear ownership rules. It's going to be chaos. The kind of chaos that historically leads to conflict, and everyone's pretending it'll work itself out. It won't. China is betting on being first. First to build infrastructure, first to establish mining operations, first to create facts on the ground. Or in this case, facts on the moon. Because once they're there, dug in, operational, it becomes incredibly hard to challenge them without triggering an international incident. Here's the current state of play. China has active rovers on the moon right now. The United States has plans. China has sample return missions scheduled. America has proposals. China has international partnerships signed and funded. America has agreements that might get congressional approval. See the pattern? So let's zoom out and look at what all of this actually means. Because we're not just talking about flags and footprints anymore. We're talking about a fundamental shift in how human civilization works. If China succeeds, and right now they're on track, they'll control access to resources that make Earth's entire economy look small. $3 quadrillion in helium-3, $500 quadrillion in rare earth elements, unlimited water for space operations, the perfect location for manufacturing in low gravity. They won't just be a superpower, they'll be the power. Think about what that control means. Every country that wants fusion energy has to deal with China. Every company that needs rare earth elements has to negotiate with China. Every space mission that needs refueling stops at China's lunar stations. It's like controlling all the oil in the world, all the gold reserves, and all the shipping lanes combined, except bigger. And here's the thing nobody wants to say out loud. This might actually be good for progress. Because China's not asking for permission, they're not waiting for international consensus. They're not debating whether it's worth it. They're just doing it. And sometimes that's what pushes humanity forward. The space race in the 1960s worked because America and the Soviet Union were competing. Competition drove innovation. We got satellite technology, GPS, weather forecasting, medical devices, computer miniaturization, all because two countries were trying to beat each other to the moon. Now we're getting round two, and the prizes are way bigger. But here's where your life actually changes. Let's say China gets helium-3 fusion working by 2040. Energy costs drop to nearly nothing. What happens? Electric cars become cheaper than gas cars. Air travel gets affordable for everyone. Manufacturing moves back from overseas because energy is free. Food production explodes because you can grow anything, anywhere with cheap power and desalination. Climate change? Solved. You don't need coal or oil anymore. You don't need to convince anyone to change their behavior. You just replace the power source. Carbon emissions drop globally, not because of regulations, but because fusion is better and cheaper. the entire climate crisis becomes irrelevant within a generation. Space tourism stops being a billionaire hobby and becomes accessible. A trip to the moon could cost what a business-class international flight costs now. Why? Because launching from the moon to Earth is cheap. And if you're manufacturing fuel and equipment on the moon, you're not hauling it up from Earth's gravity well. The economics flip completely. But, and this is a big but, all of that only happens if the technology gets shared. If China decides to hoard helium-3 fusion and use it as leverage, we get a different future. A future where energy abundance exists, but access is controlled. Where countries have to choose between independence and poverty. Where the global balance of power shifts so dramatically that the entire international system breaks down. That's not speculation, that's game theory. When one player controls a resource that everyone needs and can't get elsewhere, that player owns the game. And right now, China's playing to win total control. The counter-argument is that competition will force sharing. If China has fusion, America will dump unlimited money into developing it independently. So will Europe. So will everyone. Eventually, multiple countries have it, and the leverage disappears. Maybe. But that assumes everyone can develop it at the same pace. If China has a 20-year head start because they secured helium-3 first, 20 years is a long time to hold monopoly power. Here's another angle nobody talks about. What if living on the moon changes humans? Low gravity affects bone density, muscle mass, cardiovascular systems. People born and raised in lunar colonies might physically adapt. They might not be able to return to Earth's gravity. You'd have a permanent population that's literally different from Earth humans. A new branch of humanity. Lunar citizens with their own culture, their own priorities, their own politics. Sounds crazy? It's not. NASA studies show that astronauts who spend 6 months in space have measurable physiological changes. Now imagine children growing up in 1/6 gravity for their entire lives. Their bodies would develop differently. And China's planning for permanent populations by 2050. That's one generation away from the first lunar-born humans. And those humans won't think of Earth as home. They'll think of the moon as home. Their loyalty won't be to China or America or any Earth nation. It'll be to the lunar colony, to their survival, to their community. We'd be creating a new civilization, separate from Earth, with different needs and different goals. That's never happened before in human history. What happens when lunar colonists want independence? When they say, we mine the helium-3, we should decide what happens to it. When they stop shipping resources to Earth unless Earth meets their demands. You can't exactly send an army to the moon, and cutting off their supplies would be an act of war against people who control your energy future. We're setting up the first potential interplanetary conflict, Earth versus the moon, and we're doing it without any plan for how to handle it. No governance structure, no representation system, no agreed-upon rights for off-world citizens. We're just rushing ahead and assuming we'll figure it out later. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the geopolitical situation is getting spicy. Let's say America falls behind permanently. China establishes the dominant lunar presence. What does America do? Accept secondary status? Probably not. History shows that declining powers don't go quietly. They take risks. They make aggressive moves to regain position. And when both sides have nuclear weapons, those risks get terrifying. The moon could become the flashpoint for World War III, not because anyone wants war, but because the strategic importance is too high to concede. Imagine a scenario where American and Chinese lunar bases are competing for the same resource deposit. Equipment starts mysteriously malfunctioning, accidents happen, blame gets thrown around, tensions escalate, and before you know it, satellites are getting shot down, bases are being threatened, and we're one incident away from catastrophe. Or maybe it doesn't go that way. Maybe competition drives cooperation. Maybe countries realize that lunar resources are abundant enough for everyone. Maybe we get a new era of international partnership. Maybe the United Nations actually creates enforceable space law. Maybe private companies develop technology that lets smaller nations compete. Maybe this becomes humanity's finest hour instead of our stupidest one. But based on how we've handled every other resource competition in history, oil, gold, land, water, the optimistic scenario seems unlikely. Humans don't share well, especially when trillions of dollars and global dominance are on the line. Here's what you need to understand. This isn't a story about the future anymore. It's a story about now. While you've been watching this video, China's lunar rovers have been drilling, analyzing, mapping, sending data back to engineers who are designing the next phase. The decisions being made right now, in 2025, will determine who controls space for the next century, maybe forever. Because once infrastructure is established, once bases are operational, once mining begins, you can't undo it. You can't hit reset. The first mover advantage in space is permanent. Every month that passes, China extends its lead. Every successful mission puts them closer to resource extraction. Every partnership they sign pulls another country into their sphere of influence, and the gap between them and everyone else keeps growing. The United States keeps saying they're committed to lunar exploration. They keep increasing NASA's budget. They keep announcing new timelines. But commitments don't build bases. Announcements don't mine helium-3. And while America debates, China executes. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people don't care. Lunar discoveries don't trend on social media. Space policy doesn't win elections. The average person is worried about paying rent, not who controls the moon. And that apathy is exactly why China's winning. Because they do care. Their government cares, their space agency cares, and they're willing to invest for decades without immediate returns. By the time the general public realizes what's at stake, it'll be too late. The game will be over. China will have established facts on the ground that can't be reversed without conflict. And nobody wants that conflict because the risks are too high. So we're sleepwalking into a future where one country controls resources that could power civilization for millennia. Where energy abundance exists, but access is gate-capped. Where the rules of space are written by whoever got there first and built the biggest presence. And maybe that's fine. Maybe China will be a benevolent steward of lunar resources. Maybe they'll share technology and wealth. Maybe this leads to a golden age of prosperity. But when has that ever been how resource monopolies work? When has the country with all the leverage ever given it up voluntarily? The Chang'e missions aren't ending. Chang'e 9 and Chang'e 10 are already in development. China's talking about Chang'e 15 and beyond. They're planning decades ahead, multiple generations of missions, each one building on the last, each one getting closer to permanent colonization. And here's what keeps me up at night. We still don't know everything they've found. We know about the water, the rare earths, the helium-3, the lava tubes. But what about the data they haven't released? What about the discoveries they're keeping classified? China's researchers have been analyzing lunar samples for a year now. They've published some findings, but scientific papers take time. Data takes time to verify. What if there's something else, something bigger, something that would cause global panic if announced too early? There are reports, unverified, unconfirmed, of Chinese scientists detecting organic compounds in lunar samples. Organic doesn't mean life, but it means complex carbon molecules that shouldn't exist on a dead rock. Where did they come from? What does that mean? Other reports mention gravitational anomalies that don't match the moon's known structure, voids that are too regular, magnetic fields that are too strong, temperature readings that don't make sense. Are these just instrument errors, bad data? Or is there something about the moon we fundamentally don't understand? And if China knows something the rest of the world doesn't, what are they going to do with that information? Do they share it? Do they weaponize it? Do they use it to justify even more aggressive expansion? We're living through the opening chapter of the most important story in human history. The chapter where one species, us, becomes multiplanetary, where we stop being confined to one world and start spreading across the solar system. And whoever controls that expansion controls everything that comes after. China's making their move, right now, today, this year, while everyone else watches and waits and plans and debates. China is building the future. They're not asking for permission. They're not waiting for consensus. They're just going. And by the time everyone else decides to follow, the path will already be built. Chinese infrastructure, Chinese rules, Chinese dominance. The space race everyone thought ended in 1969, it never ended. It just paused, and now it's back. Except this time the stakes aren't about prestige or ideology. They're about survival, about resources, about power that will reshape human civilization. And we're just watching it happen. Most people don't even know it's happening. They're going to wake up one day in 2035 and see news reports about Chinese lunar colonies and wonder how we got here. The answer is simple. One mission at a time, one discovery at a time, one calculated step after another while everyone else was distracted. So here's the real question. What happens next? Because China's Chang'e 7 launches in 2026, less than a year away. That mission will identify the exact location for their permanent base, the point of no return. Once construction begins, the moon stops being neutral territory. It becomes contested, claimed, divided. And once that happens,